Hey everybody, Troy here. Welcome to video 6 of our PowerShell Fundamentals series. As you can see by the title, PowerShell Piping, along with some exporting of data. In this video, what I want to do is I want to introduce you to this concept of the PowerShell pipeline. I want to show you how we can connect commandlets together to add a whole new dimension of power to your PowerShell world. You've already seen that we can execute commands on their own, and we can work with the parameters of those commands to actually be very, very specific in what we're after. But another dimension of power comes with connecting these commandlets together in a series, and we call that the PowerShell pipeline. In this video, I want to show you how we can connect a few simple ones together, give you a feel for this, how we can actually start executing some simple commands, and we're going to use some of the convert and export functions in PowerShell to explain this pipe and demonstrate how this can work. And then along the way, you'll see how you can export information in different file formats for different reasons and for different functionalities from there. Let's get at it. I'm going to start off with my PowerShell ISE environment. Of course, always as an administrator, ready to rock and also roll. I'm going to show you right here, get service. Now, I know we keep coming back to this one. You see get service, get process, get event log. The reason that I keep going back to these ones, guys, is because I know they're on your computers. I don't want to pick more random or more arbitrary ones that may or may not be on your PowerShell. I know get service is going to be there. You're going to have that functionality. So if you're getting bored with it, I'm sorry, but it does give us that compatibility with everybody's PowerShell that I'm looking for here. But let's hit get service, and as we've seen before, that information is on my screen. Perfect. Now, that was a pipe. You've been piping, you didn't even know it. Because what's going on here is that PowerShell is actually assuming something behind the scenes here for us. It's assuming you want this information on the screen. And it's putting it out onto your console host. Let me show you what I get. Let's get a bit more specific. I'm going to open up my command add-on pane here. There it is right there. And I'm going to type in the words out and a dash. There we go. There's my specific list of commandlets associated with the word out. And we can see that we've got out default, we've got out file, out printer, out host. Well, guess what? We've been using out default and out host this whole time via the means of a pipe. Now, what is this pipe? Well, a pipe is simply, a pipeline is simply taking the command and putting it into another command to deal with that information. So get service actually looks like this. Let's, oopsie, I typed in the wrong place. Let's go back here. See, clear my host. Let's go get service one more time. And let's use this special character called a pipe delimiter. It's this. It's the big long skinny L that is sitting usually above the Enter key on your Windows keyboard. And I'm going to pipe this to the default location. So that's what PowerShell is doing. It's simply saying, take the information from get service, take the output, and feed it. Right? Feed it over the pipe to a command called out default. And then out default will do something with it, which is present the information on the screen. That's what out default does. The default setting for out default is to send that information to the host. So what you're actually seeing here when we typed get service, we're taking the output that get service created, and it fed it over to the commandlet called out default, which then again fed it to the commandlet called out host, whose job it is to put the information on your screen. And so that pipe scenario is exactly what we've seen. Now, PowerShell obviously knows that typing out default and out host is such a nuisance. So therefore, it just puts that stuff in for you. Get service, get process, all of those are followed by a pipe that is there by default that you just don't see. But that piping lets us do all sorts of cool things. What we're trying to do is take the output of get service, and we want to feed it to something else that it will be of some value. Now, how do we know whether this stuff works? I'm going to show you, before we go too far into piping, I want to show you how we can tell how these commandlets work. I'm going to go back to our help documentation, and let's go take a look at get service. And I'm going to use the dash full as my parameter because I want to show you a specific section of help that's really important to you. And that is right there, the input and output section right there. Okay, this we're gonna look at a lot, because as we start building our pipelines, we have to know whether the command can accept input and what kind of output does it put out. So what I want to know here is, does it accept input? Yes, I can pipe a service object into this commandlet. Perfect. And the command, when it generates its information, it's creating it in the form of something called a system service process, and it'll forward that into something else. Now, let's take a look at a, let's do help on get process. Okay, we will also look at that one. I'm going to go to my full functionality, scroll back up past my examples, and I want to look at that input-output section. Again, I can see clearly that yes, I can pipe a process to this commandlet. This one actually, look at this one, puts information out in different types though. Diagnostic process, diagnostic file version info, diagnostic process module. It puts it in different types, so that means it can feed to other types of commandlets. So again, this doesn't make any sense yet, but when we start diving into what those processes mean, these object types mean, that'll become very valuable to you. Let's look at one more. I'm going to go with help get event log. We've been using that one with a dash full. And let's go back up here, and I'll see, looking for my input and output. There again, look at this. This is really important. I cannot pipe information to this commandlet. I can, however, pipe it to something else. The pipe information can come out. So I will never see, I'll just go back here. So what I'm saying is basically I could have a process called get service, and that can feed something else, but it can also be on the receiving side of information with a pipe. I could do that same thing with get process. It will receive information. What you will never see is PowerShell be able to work with anything like this. I can't take information from anything else and feed it to event log because it does not accept pipe input. So we have to be careful with which commandlets work in which ways and how they're going to work, but that help function again gives us all the information that we need. Now we know that I can take my simple commandlet here like get service. We know that I've been putting it out to default, and I've been putting that out to my host. That's what's been going on here. But often I don't always want that information on the host. I'm pulling this information to retrieve for some other purpose. I want to put this into a report, put this into a file, or I want it to be used by another application. And so I fortunately have a lot of export opportunities to take information and put it into different file formats. Now, one of the file formats that I have to work with, or one of the tools I have to work with, for example, is called outFile. And so I now can take this service and I can go out. Actually, let's look at the help first. Help outFile. Perfect. Let's read about it. There are my parameters, my parameter sets, and this does exactly what I expect it to do. This sends output to a file. Oh, look at this. I actually have a little redirection operator that can make this work. Let me show you this works. So I am going to, before I go too fast here, let's take a look at the syntax. Remember, I'm looking for mandatory and optional parameters. Optional defined by those square brackets, and if it does not have a square bracket, it's going to be mandatory. And I can see my first file path argument, the first file path parameter, is a positional mandatory parameter, which means the file path doesn't have to be set, but I definitely have to have a string to tell outFile where I'm putting that information. Let's show you some examples. I'm going to go back with get service, and let's pipe this. Instead of my host, I'm going to go to file. Okay, now I'm going to use the full syntax, so I'm going to use file path. There's a difference between file and literal path. File path takes relative reference indicators as well as wildcards. Literal path has to have that it does not accept those same characters. File path will normally work for you, but you will find times when you're doing scripts that literal path is the better option. My general take on it is to use file path until something breaks, and then I use literal paths in, but commonly that's where I'll do those in scripts. I'm going to start with file path, and let's pick the file path. I'm going to, it's got to live on my C drive. There we go. That's what I'm trying to do. And this is going to go into my users 300. Let's go through this. So it's on my desktop. Okay, and what I want to do here is take a look here. I'm going to build a text file. Let's put this into a text file called services.txt. Okay, now before I hit enter here, let's take a good look at what I've done. I have taken the get service command, and instead of putting it onto my host, I'm going to feed that over to the command called outFile. OutFile needs a parameter called file path, which is this path including the file name. So it's going to build the file as it exports the information. Let's watch it in action. I'm going to hit enter and no output. That's good. I didn't get an error. I didn't see anything on my console, but what that should tell me is that on my desktop, I have a text file. And so, let's go over here. There it is. So there's my text file telling me what I would have seen on the screen. Look, it's exactly the same. So essentially what I would have seen on the host, it has put into a text file for me. Now, I'm not limited by the type of file. I can do anything I want with this. I could make this let's make it a CSV file. Okay, and again, comma separated values, very useful. Let's see if it'll do that. And I'm gonna check again. There it is. Yes, it did. It built me a CSV file. Now, I'm gonna open this up and you're gonna see something that is maybe not what we want to see. This, again, is simply what I would have seen on the screen. And it's not even separated by the delineators. I can see the spaces, but Excel would normally, if it's a true CSV file, the reason that Excel opens my CSV files is because it puts your columns, it puts all your information into these nice tidy columns. It delineates it. That's the purpose of a CSV file. This has jammed everything into the A column, which means I have to do more work with this. This really isn't a CSV file. I called it a CSV file, but it's not really a CSV file. I'd have to do more work with it to do that. I could do the same thing with, let's go HTML. Okay, sure, let's make a web page here. Nothing stopping me in outFile from doing anything I want with this. But that's not really a web page. All I'm doing is using Edge to view the text information that would be normally on my console. Now that's kind of important. I want to make sure that you're understanding the difference here. Although I can arbitrarily decide whatever format that I want, it's not really in that format. Let's show you an example here of a CSV file. Now again, the CSV file is really important because what it'll do is let me take a look at that data in a different way. I'm going to look at my options for CSV using my add-on. There's ConvertTo-CSV, Export-CSV, Convert From, and then everything else just has CSV in the title. It's not really CSV related. What I'm really looking for is the 3 commandlets that are -CSV. So those are what I've got to work with. Let's look at one in action here. I'm going to go get service, and let's pipe this to convert to CSV. Awesome. Now, if you were to look at the help, which I encourage you to do, for convert to CSV, you're going to notice something really important missing in its parameter set. There is no option. There's no option for a file. There's no option for a file path. I got delimiter, use culture, no type information. That's your top line. I've got all my common parameters in here. There's no place for me to build a file. This commandlet does not let you actually put it into a file. If I put my command to use, you can see that, yes, look at all the information I got. This is just like a snowstorm of text here. And it's done something very different. It's taken the get service information, converted it to CSV, but look at all the extra information I have. Name, required services, can pause and continue, can shut down, can stop, display name. That's way more than I saw when I just did get service out to file. I only saw 3 columns. Look at all the stuff I have to work with. Well, let's see if I can take this command and get it to a file. Well, I'm going to pipe it one more time. Let's go out to the file. And let's do that file path again. Okay, and what I'm going to do here now is I got to do my This will be the last time I do this, everybody, because I'm going to show you a little trick here in a second. I've got to get to my desktop because I want to be able to find this nice and easy for you. And let's use our services.csv. This time we're going to use this. I'm going to overwrite this because that's the behavior of it. I'm going to hit enter. Let's go back to my services.csv. Let's see what it looks like in Excel. Now, I'm going to get a much bigger amount of output. Huge. Name, required services, pause, shut down. Now, what you're seeing here, everybody, is this row is telling me all the different properties and methods associated with each service on my computer. It's way more than 3. I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of things I can do. If it has a feature that says can shut down, guess what? That means I'm going to be able to shut it down. I can stop it. It has independent services. I've got all sorts of properties to work with. But look at this. It's still not a comma delineated file. It's still not really a CSV. I can see my commas here, but Excel is still not treating it as CSV. So what we're seeing again is the limitation of out file. Out file is just, it's literally just taking whatever was on the screen and pasting it over there. And that's not really what I want. Let's look at the export to CSV function and see if we get anything different. Let's go get service and let's pipe that to export to CSV. And without even looking at the help, I can see that as soon as I hit my parameters, I have a path. That means I can literally put this into a file. And so before I put this into this big long file, I'm going to change my directory. So you guys, so I don't have to keep typing out this big long file path to my desktop. We should know that CD stands for change directory. It is the shortcut for the PowerShell version of set location. This is the one that will let me go to the path where I'm going to specify one time, last and for all, so you don't have to watch me type this out. And let's go to my desktop. There we go. So I'm going to change the location of my world to my desktop. And if I do a directory here, that's what's going on there. Yeah, don't judge me with those on my desktop. I'm going to now run that command. Let's go get service and let's pipe this to export CSV. That's what I want with the path. Now, because I'm already in my desktop location now, I'm just going to hit the dot, which is my relative reference for my particular directory, and I'm going to go to services.csv. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to overwrite it one more time, everybody. I'm going to overwrite that file once again. There it is. Let's open it up in Excel, and this time I'm hoping you see something different. I'm hoping to see that. Look at the beautiful delineation. Every column is a property, and now it is properly delineated and read by Excel as a true CSV file. So you can see now this is in a format that I can do a lot with. I don't have to do any additional work on it, and I can now pull this information into different applications for what I need to do with it. Now, what you've seen now is that there's a very big difference between get service out to host, get service out to file, get service converted to CSV and then sent out to a file, and get service exported to CSV. So we know that out to file is simply a carbon copy of whatever you'd see on the screen. It's just simply a straight copy out. With respect to convert to CSV, it converts it, but it can't put it in a file for you. And then I have to use out file, which doesn't give me what I'm after. But the export CSV definitely is what I'm after. So subtle but important differences in the data. Let's take a look at another one here with, let's look at another file format called, let's go HTML. What do I have to work with HTML? ConvertTo-HTML is the only commandlet that comes up in my search if I am trying to export get service. Let's try this. I'm going to go get service. I'm going to pipe this to ConvertTo-HTML. There we go. Nope, there it is. And I'm going to hit my parameter check, and look at this. I do not have any file information. There's no place to put the file. So I can't type in file path, right? As soon as I start typing in something, PowerShell is completely lost here. So that means the only thing I can do is see what happens. Let's hit get service. We'll convert that to HTML. And I'm seeing back to an avalanche of text. But look at the text carefully. I'm going to scroll way up, get back, and you're going to see that when I stop scrolling, I'm now seeing all the cool HTML information, the tags and the language of HTML. So this did actually do what I needed it to do. Let's see what happens if I want to get this into a file. I'm going to pipe this over now to out file. And I'm going to use my file path, and let's put it right here in our regular directory. And I'm going to call this services.html. I'm going to overwrite that bad one because that was no good to us. And I'm going to see what happens when I open up an HTML. And Edge loves it. Look at this. Name, required service. So I now have the beautiful HTML formatting of what I was after. So in this case, although I don't actually have an export to HTML, I have a convert to, and the file, the out file works really, really well. So that's perfect. Now, that combination would work. There is another file format that is really important to PowerShell. It's called XML, Extensible Markup Language. It is there to assist you with the transport of information. It's broader, bigger, tougher, more sophisticated than HTML. It always takes HTML's lunch money, but it doesn't really help us to look at, but it's really important. Let me show you what I mean here. I have ConvertTo-XML, I have Export-to-XML, I've got a few XML related cmdlets here. Let's see what it looks like on our screen. I'm going to go get service. I'm going to pipe this to convert to XML. Okay, let's just see what happens. Yeah, that's anticlimactic. It just gave me a list of encoding. All right, well, let's see what happens when I put this into a file. And I'm going to go out file with my file path at my current location, and I'm going to go services. Now I'm going to have to go services.xml. Let's do that. Let's make that XML format. Excellent, it worked. There's my new file. Let's open up an Edge. And Edge says, yeah, nothing. It can't read it. That makes sense. There wasn't anything there. When I exported it to my host, to my desktop, my screen, there wasn't anything to see. Okay, but that's because it's not really a language for display. It's a language for transport. What PowerShell is using ConvertXML for is to package your information up of all these objects with all their dimensional properties and put them into another application or allow you to send it somewhere else. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go get service again. And I'm now not going to convert it, but I'm going to export it to the very special PowerShell format called CLI-XML. Now again, here I have, oh, there's my path. I have my path options. So let's now use my reference locator with my services. I want this to be my services XML. Let's see what happens now. It's working. I can see it's taking longer. That means that PowerShell is actually having to do some work here. That's a good sign. I didn't get an error. Let's go back and take a look at this XML file. Let's open it up now. And, ooh, look at this. Behold. Oh, I have tons of stuff. Look at this. This is a huge mammoth file. Look at the scroll bar, everybody. I hope you can see it. This is a mammoth file, and all of this information is specially packaged in an XML version that is legible largely to different types of applications. You and me looking at it, I can't really tell what I'm seeing here, but this is totally useful for other applications, and it contains all the multi-dimensional elements of all the objects, properties, and methods. And so it's a super powerful format. Again, not much to look at, but huge to know because I'm frequently going to be transferring this information in XML. So the same applied though with CSV. Although I could convert it to a file that's called CSV, I could go out file and call it services XML. That really, like that just did nothing. That was terrible. However, the Export-CliXML, that was the power. All right, so what I've hoped to show you everybody here is a couple really important foundational elements here. Let's take a quick look here at what we've covered. I hope you now have an understanding of how that PowerShell pipeline is working. It is connection of commandlets separated by the pipe. How do we tell which commandlets play well with each other? We're going to look at that input and output help on every commandlet. They have to play well together, and we're going to see as we get more sophisticated with our piping that connecting these commandlets really depends on the language that each one can talk. Some work well, some do not. We now can connect some fairly simple commands. You've been using out host, out default. You can now use things like out printer, out file. You can take that information and convert it. You can also export it, and there's a very important difference between converting and exporting. Converting packages it up but doesn't put it into a file, and I'd have to use the file, the out file, to work with that. Doesn't always do what I want it to do. Export, however, does package it properly in the different file formats that I want. You've now seen TXT files, CSV files, HTML files, as well as XML files. And all of them serve a different purpose. You're probably thinking, why does the convert option even exist if we don't use it to put it into a file? Well, there's reasons for it in different capacities. It would feed into other commandlets that may be able to work with that information that export doesn't do that so well. So there are reasons and rationales. Every commandlet is there for a reason. It's easy to look and go, well, they look like they do the same thing. Well, there's situations, on the surface they might, but there's a lot of situations where they don't, and we have to figure out why that unique commandlet is unique to that situation. Hopefully that helped. We're going to come back in the next video and take this further.